Good evening and welcome to the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York and the 7th season of the Artisan Lecture Series. I'm Victoria Dengel and I'm the Executive Director of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen. The program tonight is supported in part by public funds from the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs in partnership with the City Council and the Friends of the Artisan Lecture Series. For those of you less familiar with the Society, and may I see a show of hands, who has never been here before? Okay, then you'll enjoy my introduction. So the General Society was founded in 1785 by the skilled craftsmen of the city, artisans who represented 22 different trades, including carpenters, saddlers, tailors, and silversmiths, among others. Today, our 232-year-old organization continues to serve the people of the City of New York through our educational and cultural programs, including our Tuition-Free Mechanics Institute, the General Society Library, the Lock Museum, which is upstairs. We invite you to peruse over 350 very specially collected locks in the early part of the 20th century that were collected by one of our members, John M. Mossman, who was a bank vault specialist and amassed this very special collection in 20 years and then bequeathed it to the Society. Should that pique your curiosity, there's a book that was also published at the time called The Lure of the Lock. And that's available for purchase. The General Society Library is the space you're in this evening, and our lecture series, of which the Artisan Series is a part. And founded in 1820, it is the second oldest library in New York City and one of the city's 3 remaining membership libraries, and we invite you to join for as little as $35 a year if you're a senior citizen and $50 for adults. And so tonight, we gather once more to pay tribute to the art of craftsmanship. The Artisan Lecture Series has committed itself to giving voice to internationally known artisans who will talk about the intricacies of their specialized crafts. The mission of the Artisan Lecture Series is to promote the work and art of skilled craftsmen to assist in ensuring that the unique knowledge is understood and carried forth for generations to come. And we thank every one of you who come tonight in support of our very special speaker, but also in support of the Society and its work. Tonight, we are very pleased to have the acclaimed designer Ted Muelling, who designs jewelry and decorative objects inspired by organic forms found in nature, to introduce our speaker, Tucker Viemeister. I am delighted to welcome Ted Muelling here this evening. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So Tucker and I have known each other for over 40 years. We met at Pratt Institute. We were both in the industrial design program in the early 70s. So it's been a long time. We're extremely different, fundamentally different. He is someone who feels very comfortable in the world, and I'm someone who does not. When I got to Pratt, I didn't know what industrial design was. Tucker comes from a more sophisticated background. His father was a renowned industrial designer. He comes from a very creative, rather eccentric family. He grew up in Yellow Springs, Ohio, which is sort of a bastion of liberalism, Antioch College, etc. Went to progressive schools, hence he can't spell. Anyway, he came from what I thought was a rather exotic background compared to my suburban Republican upbringing, which was pretty prosaic. Anyway, we became friends in spite of our very different personalities. In Antioch, I think there was a sense of community and a kind of a care and empathy for people that Tucker and his family embraced. And they were very inclusive, and somehow I entered this family in some very kind way. I was embraced by them. Tucker's mom, who was kind of a catalyst and a force in herself, encouraged Tucker and his brother to learn silver making back pre-college days. And they had a store in, I think, Yellow Springs called Ohio Silver. So they had humor, and they were making silver objects. Anyway, so he had that under his, he was artisanal, and then he was going toward what his father had done, the industrial design world. When we graduated, Tucker got a rather prestigious job at a very good ID firm, and he included me to do some work now and then to make some money. And it was a really important experience for me, because I realized I didn't want to go near an industrial design studio ever again. So I kind of took another path. I went more into the artisanal, making jewelry, metal things. And Tucker also helped me with that because of his experience with Ohio Silver. He taught me how to basically hammer and solder silver. And Tucker's the most pragmatic person you'll ever meet. And nothing's a big deal. And he taught me how to hammer, solder, and voila, that's all you need to know. And that's very Tucker, no problem. He also helped me with my first collections. Anyway, his encouragements and support have been key to my own success and, in a way, my own survival. His career has been more adventurous than mine. He's not shy. He embraces change. He likes to play the iconoclast. He's a creative thinker. But I think his success is grounded in a kind of resourcefulness and intuition into how things work and how things are made. He's really quite rational thinking. He's also great to work with in a team. He's fundamentally generous, easygoing, and a great collaborator and problem solver. In the end, I think Tucker really enjoys himself, and I think you'll see that in his presentation. That's it.
Okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. Thanks, Ted, for that nice introduction. Okay, here we are. I'm a little nervous about talking to you guys, because usually I go make these speeches in China or someplace and I don't know anybody. And so here it's like too many of my friends. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about some projects, since you asked me to explain the process, because that's what the members of this place like. I'm going to talk about that in relation to my own projects and also some of my dad's. And I'm going to talk about industrial design, and which leads naturally to beauty and truth, of course, and some general ideas. And then at the end, you think up some questions if you want, and I'll try and answer them. Or I can make up another question, I don't care. So basically, I'm talking about materials and process. That's basically what industrial design is, and beauty. So first I'll talk a little bit about me. So that's me. I have a toothpaste collection, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm an industrial designer. This is Raymond Lowy in a fake design office. But industrial design the field where we create things supposedly for mass production, but now it's basically any kind of anything. We can do everything. That's what's great about it. So it's a craft because we do use our hands, but it's also a craft in the sense that we, are concerned with the way things are and how they come out. And but mostly we give form to our ideas. And of course we have to make them function. And we use all kinds of different materials. We have to think about what happens to the materials when the product is worn out and thrown away. We really are concerned a lot with production. We used to be more concerned with production because in the old days, basically you had to make things that were designed to be able to be made. Now you can design anything you want and they'll figure out how to make it, like Apple. So, and then we also make things that are beautiful. So not only do we make things that are work and all that, they should be beautiful. So that's what a lot of what design is, but there's more to it. So we have to pay attention to the user. So as long as we understand who the user is and get feedback from the user, we can create things that are that the user can use. By the way, this is my daughter a while ago, Louisa. So, and one of the ways we do that is to measure people's bodies and develop these human factors and apply those to the products that we design so that we know that our things fit the people, that they can reach that far, they're comfortable in the chair. But I also thought that how you think about things also affects whether you think it's comfortable or not. Because if you're in a good mood, the chair is likely to be more comfortable than if you're in a bad mood. So I made up the word psychonomics. So there's ergonomics and psychonomics. And our designs have social consequences. Everything we design has some, affects people. The way they set up the chairs in this room affects you. You think, I'm going to make a speech now. So, and then the industrial design process is built around prototyping. So we make things, try it out, see what's wrong with it, fix it, make another one, and like that until it's until it's good enough to produce. And then after it comes out, we make more of them. And we collaborate. And that's, like Ted says, that's the most fun about being an industrial designer, is that you work with a team. So design is function. You got the best seat. Plus utility, which adds up to Beautility. I'll talk a little more about Beautility later. But basically the idea is that products are things, beauty has a value more than just plain function. Like beauty is what we want. Beauty is what makes something more enticing, makes it meaningful to you. And so we have to remember that the businessmen who just want to make money they think like, let's sprinkle a little beauty on this, but actually that's the main thing that we're working for. So designers make things attractive, and that's what designers do. And that's what business wants, because that way they can sell more products. But I think that's upside down. I think business is here to support designers, not the other way around. Because design is actually something that's good for us, whereas business is just a system of distributing things. Anyway, designers make stuff that's good for us into something that we want. So back to Yellow Springs. That's where I'm from. There's a couple of people here from Yellow Springs, actually. And so one of the first presidents of Antioch was Horace Mann, and he said, "Be ashamed to die until you've won some victory for humanity." So I've been trying to do that. And my mom has also been telling me to do that. So that's my mom and my dad and me. So my dad was an industrial designer. Oops. So back in Yellow Springs, like Ted said, my brother and I had a jewelry store, and we called it Ohio Silver. That's why I'm wearing the Lone Ranger outfit. But the idea of the place was that we, Chris and I wanted to have a place where we could make anything we wanted and try and sell it, to support us being able to make stuff. And so it was kind of a double-edged sword, because once we sold something, it only meant we had to make more. And so and if we didn't sell it, then we didn't make any money. So it was like, well, what are we going to do? Anyway, so my brother went to Virginia, and he's still making weird things. And I came back to New York and started working with Wyman and Cannon. And we were doing the wayfinding and street furniture for the National Zoo in Washington, which was a great job. And that I also, Ted moved into our apartment when we moved out of Brooklyn and finally made it to Manhattan. But after a while then, I left there and started Smart Design with some other people. Dan Formos is here, one of our partners. And after a long time there, I went and opened the New York office of Frog Design, and quickly went to Razorfish, the digital design company, and left there and started the New York office of Springtime. And I just got back from China, where I was did a workshop with some students there. Okay, so meanwhile, back to me. So I designed a lot of different things, and but some of the ones that I really think are good is the book about Rowena Reed, who was one of our teachers at Pratt, and I've been working on exhibits and stuff now, and of course, Good Grips. So I'm going to talk a little bit about process and use my dad as an example. So like I started to say before, he was an industrial designer, and he was designing the Tucker car right before I was born, and that's why he named me after the car. And so if you're named after a car, you have to be a product designer, I think. But anyway, before the Tucker car, cars looked old and frumpy, and so Preston Tucker got this idea of creating a new cool car, and so that's Preston Tucker with a rendering of one of the early renderings of the Tucker car. And it looked like this, and it was designed by George Lawson, and he made a model of the car, and he also got a patent for the design. They still have the model. And these guys in New Jersey are trying to make a full-size one based on that plaster model. Not really a good idea, I don't think. But anyway, so George Lawson got a patent on the design, and then got into a fight with Preston Tucker, and so he left, and so Tucker was stuck with this design, but it wasn't it was patented by the other guy. So he bought the rights to the design and got a new designer, who was Alex Tremulous, who started to make the design work a little better. And one of the features of this design was that the front fenders had the headlights on it, and when you turn the wheels, the headlights would turn with the wheels. So the idea was that you never drive into a dark corner. So Here's Alex Tremulous he was a designer, but he also was really interested in airplanes, and he was in the Air Force during the Second World War, and he happened to be at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and he designed the original flying saucer. Anyway, so he was working with Preston Tucker, and it's a bunch of designers, and creating the car. Meanwhile, there's his newer design. Oh, at this point, he had decided that you couldn't really turn the fenders on a car, so instead of the fenders turning, just the middle headlight would turn when you turned the steering wheel. And meanwhile, back in New York, my dad was working for Gordon Lippincott, right around the corner from here, actually. And he was designing some cars for him. This is my dad working on the Graham Page. And here's the Graham Page guys. But meanwhile, back in Chicago, they started building the clay model of the car. And while they were doing this, Preston Tucker came to New York and met Gordon Lippincott, who convinced him that he needed to hire some real designers, meaning my dad and his team. So there's my dad at work in New York. And so Dad drew some pictures of cars, including this one that said, "Real luxury in transit." And Preston Tucker loved that and goes, "Okay, let's go." So he hired Lippincott to put together a team, and my dad was the head of the team, and they went to Chicago and started working on designing the car. And so what they did was they built another clay model of a full-size clay model of the car right next to Tremulous's team, which must have been a really must have caused a little conflict between the two people. But Dad says that Preston Tucker would come in and go like, "Oh, I like this on here," and then he'd go to the other model and go like, "I like that," and then everybody would scramble to make their models look like that. So actually, it's not such a bad way of collaborating. But anyway, they smuggled in a camera and took these pictures of the models being made, and but the whole here's the timesheet from one of the guys who worked with them. The whole project was only like 3 months. So they built that model and got to this point when Walter Margulies, who was Gordon's partner, found out that the next check wasn't coming. So he flew out to Chicago, got his picture taken next to the model, and pulled his guys off the team. But here's a rendering my dad made of the car. They finished the prototype and introduced it in a big gala thing, and it was like a very exciting time, and everybody really wanted the car except for the big three. And so anyway, they ended up making 50 of the cars, or only 50 of them. And so I went on the internet and found pictures of all 50 of them. Well, not all 50 of them, because there's 1 or 2 of them that are missing. Like this one looks a little grim, and there's another one that one is just a door. But the rest of them, and that one is missing. But the rest of them, they are all in existence, and mostly because they're worth like millions of dollars a piece now. And they made a movie about it, and I found the folder. My dad, of course, uses the same old folders, and there's that one. And Lippincott even still pitches the Tucker car as an example of how committed they are to their clients. I heard that they tell the clients that they're so committed to them that they're, one time when they were working on this project, their creative director named his son after the car. And I was in a meeting once when they were saying that, and I'm like, that's me. Anyway, true story. Okay, me. So I did another project, which on my own, which is a new logo for Trump. But the idea was it was supposed to be funny. And anyway, so I just put that in there because it was the same color background as this next part, which is I was working with David Rockwell, and we started this team dedicated to Coca-Cola called Studio Red. And it's a transdisciplinary team with all kinds of different kinds of designers working together. And one of our first projects was this scooter that you could drive around in different venues and give away Coke and stuff. And so we built a prototype in our office in Amsterdam. So it has electric motors in the wheels, and you steer it with your feet like a skateboard. But so after we proved the concept, we made a real prototype, and we tested it with real customers and found out that people who got their Coke from this guy thought it tasted 40% better.
Whoa, look at that.
Another proof that design is worth it. So Studio Red designed a whole bunch of different things for Coca-Cola, from vending machines to coffee machines to we did some bottles even. It was really fun because we were supposed to be innovative, and so we did lots of different things. And the Studio Red evolved into the lab, which was a digital thing. So it was these two guys, Josh and James, were geniuses at digital technology. And so one of our best projects was for this casino in Las Vegas called the Cosmopolitan. And the lobby had all these giant columns in it. And so we said, why don't we cover them with interactive video? And so that's what we did. And we developed software where it's computational graphics. So it's like a video game, and we could make anything we wanted. And so we made 4 different scenes, and they're high-definition TVs with a mirror on the front, so everything is like reflected in itself. And each one of those bubbles is individually created, so you look at it and it looks like real bubbles, and it's really a fantastic environment. And we thought, this is great. You could show this for one season and then the next season have something different, and the casino guys go, oh no, we want to change them every 15 minutes. So they decided that they could get other people, other artists and stuff to do things on this, and we designed it so that it would be easy for people to plug in their different things. So now there's like hundreds of artists and digital people who are making all kinds of different content for it. So another project I worked on at Rockwell was Yotel, which is also right down the street. And Yotel was, the idea was tiny rooms in a big hotel. So you pay for, you don't waste real estate on the room where you're sleeping, or the bed, which also like folds up into a couch. And it was one of the guys who started it was this guy, Simon Woodruff, who started Yo Sushi in London. He's like a rock and roll guy. And so the Yo Sushi has like the conveyor belt where the food is always coming around, and it has robots that drive around and give you beer and stuff like that. You can see he's a little nuts. And so in the Yotel, we had the restaurant, the tables in the restaurant after serving dinner, they're robotic, and they go down into the floor, and it turns into a disco. And instead of checking your bag with a bellboy, we had this robot that checks your suitcase. After that, I worked with Ralph Applebaum a little bit, and I was working on the Yeltsin Presidential Center in Russia. And what was more fun was doing a pitch for the Lego house, which they were building in Denmark. And so I came up with this concept for the building. It seemed obvious to me. But they thought it was a joke. But then they went and hired Bjork Engels to design it, and it looks the same. I think it's the same idea, right? And lately I've been working with Think, and they're an exhibition company, and we designed the exhibit for this, inside this thing for the World's Fair in Dubai. And it's the sustainable pavilion. And so the idea is that all the water and electricity is produced by the building on site. And we also worked on a project for the Smithsonian, which was going to be an innovation museum inside this building in Washington next door to the castle, which it was really tricky because it was supposed to be an innovative museum about innovation. So it was like, So one of the ideas was to have like these drone balloons when you entered it were flying around with information on it, and platforms inside it with that were supposed to be interactive, places where people could learn different things. And this one was about time and space. And then we had this other idea of having the platforms be movable and transformable so they could have different subjects like justice or hairdos. And anyway, next subject is process again. So process is important, and collaboration really is important to that too. And so that's one of the things that was great about smart design. And one of our clients was Copco, and it was started by Sam Farber, who we were designing lots of cool kitchen things for him, and then he retired and sold the business. Luckily, he noticed that when he was peeling potatoes, it was very uncomfortable for him and his wife, who were getting arthritis. And so he came back to us and said, why don't we do a little project that we can figure out how to make a potato peeler that's more comfortable. So potato peelers are pretty uncomfortable to begin with, so it wasn't so hard. But when you consider someone with arthritis, it's really, that potato peeler is very uncomfortable. So working with Patty Moore, who is a gerontologist, we developed these ideas about how to satisfy those other users. So we made a whole bunch of models and prototypes and tried them out on different people and developed the idea. So it's not such a complicated thing when you think of form following function. Basically, and these are some of the ideas that Dan Formosa, who's also here, figured out, was if you have like a little teeny thing in your hand, it's harder to hold on to. If you make it bigger, you have less, you have more leverage on it. And then if you make it oval so that it doesn't spin around in your hand, then you can hold on to it without as much pressure too. And then we decided if you make it out of rubber, then it has more friction, and so that it makes all those things put together, make it just easier to and more comfortable. And so we made a great new potato peeler. It was a big success. You can see the problem now is the carrot. So, but the most important thing was we realized that, first of all, no one wanted to buy handicapped potato peelers. So we decided we would sell them to everybody. And it turned out that they actually were more comfortable for everybody. Like kids loved them. And so that's where the idea of universal design started, was the idea that you can make, if you think ahead, if you make things good for some people with handicaps, they're better for everybody. So it's like, all you have to do is think ahead. So the problem is that we built all kinds of barriers that, that separate people from what could be a more normal life. And so if we can take those things away, if we think about it ahead of time, we don't build a step, we build a ramp. It means like that there's no barrier there, and it's good for everybody. So it's just thinking ahead. That's what Good Grips is about. And we got a patent, and that's thinking ahead too. So it was good for business. And then we made all kinds of other things designed with the same idea. And now it's a huge company, and I'm proud to have been there in the beginning. And it's a great company. They do all their stuff is designed for everybody, and it's designed well, and it's beautiful, and stuff like that. And it's been endorsed by Jesus. So what else can you hope for? Well, on a sad note, I found out that the knife I designed was used in a murder. So the problem with being a designer is there's always unintended consequences. So, but that leads into materials. So the good thing about Good Grips was that they were made out of rubber. They had those little fins that look like fun and are comfortable. And so that's what Santoprene is. And then I've been working with another material, this nanotechnology material that absorbs shock. And so they've been using this material for sports equipment and stuff. And I said, why not make pads for old people who, so when they fall down, they don't break their hip. And so we designed new pads, and we made this video to show how good they really work. So instead of a hip bone, we made an ice thing. So you can see the one that it broke. And so, but the ones wrapped up in our hip pads are, look, they don't break. So if you need some hip pads, go to Prevent Products and order some. So, but it's a combination of materials and process that's important, like on Twin Peaks. So I was working on this project where I wanted to use the highest technology CNC machine, but normal, the lowest technology thing, wood. And so I always loved this chair by Charles and Ray Eames, and so I said, why not make it out of a log? And so with CNC technology, that we used the digital form, had it and ground it into the log, and now we have this great chair. So anyone who wants to buy one, you can get it from Wooda. And it was just in the European Vogue, so it's real. So that's the other thing that's important about design is we make real stuff. We can't go to a meeting and say like, how about if we do this or that? We have to like actually have something to show. And that's one of the things that makes us very powerful. For instance, this is the queen, right? But if you take away her crown, she's just a lady. So queen, lady, queen. So that shows the power of, an example of the power of things. Also, the Ramones, they made this record, but they actually made more money from selling their T-shirts than selling their music. So people want the real thing. There you go. So that's what design is about. Truth. So design, like I said, designers are concerned with making things that are beautiful, but lately I think we've dropped the beauty ball. People are building really ugly houses like this, and no designers are standing up, except me, and saying, like, these are ugly. Look at them. They're building thousands of them in China. So I think designers have to realize that the first thing is to do no harm. So beauty is really important. Defining what is beautiful is like a question, but the conversation is important. So, and one of the things about beauty is that it, fades away after a while. But it's really important, and it's really, it's a process too. It's like always reaching for trying to make something that's more beautiful. But stuff that's beautiful makes us feel good. And, it's peaceful. It maybe even heals people. And it helps us work together. So, beauty is poetic. This is not supposed to be funny. It's melodic. It's an experience, and you can't buy beauty. Beauty's like, in some ways, natural. But designers can make things beautiful by just trying to understand composition and how to put things together, and that's what we learned at Pratt, and that's why we made this book about the curriculum there that Rowena Reed helped to start. And the book now is in 7 different languages, including Chinese. And the idea is that you can learn how to make things that are beautiful. Give them forms that are nice. And in the business world, there's nobody except the designers are the ones who are concerned with whose job it is to make it beautiful. The CEO's job is not to make it beautiful. The marketing people aren't trying to make things beautiful. The people who work in the factory aren't making them because they want to make it easy, And the guys who are selling it don't care how beautiful it is either. So we are the only people who care about making things beautiful. That's what design is. But it's not so easy. It's a complex thing. We're always faced with contradictions of all kinds of different factors that make it hard to be a good designer. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place. But that's where Beautility comes in. That's what we need to do, is remember that beauty is important and it has a value and a function. So that's a general idea. And that's all I have to say tonight. Are we having a question and answer period? Does anyone have a question? Oh, there's one back there. Maybe you should just stand up and ask. Or
We'd like to record the questions.
Sir, could you wait till the microphone comes? Thank you.
Hi, I guess I'm a big fan of yours because I love OXO products, and I've always admired the logo that reads the same thing sideways, up and down. And
Right.
just thought if you have anything to do with that logo, I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah, well, at Smart Design, one of the reasons why we called the company Smart was because we wanted to design everything. And so we did design the logo. In fact, Ree Norgaard's here, who is the graphic designer on that project. And the reason why it reads upside down, backwards, every different way was because Sam Farber liked that. He was like, he came up with the name because he wanted it to read right no matter which way the box was on the shelf. And so he wanted to take away that, didn't want anyone to have to worry about putting the box on the shelf right side up. Oh, here comes the
May I hand
microphone.
you the microphone, sir?
Sure. Tucker, could you explain the rationale of how you decided to go to Pratt? Because it's pretty far distance from where you were actually working at the time.
Well, it wasn't that hard of a decision, basically because I thought, ever since I was a baby, I thought I was going to be an industrial designer. I mean, I didn't know what an industrial designer was, but I thought my dad was like making stuff, drawing pictures, having a good time. People liked what he did. I was like, why would you want to do, it seemed like a good job. So then when it came time to go to college, I'm like, I might as well go to Pratt. That's where my dad went, so that was the thing. And I think that at the time, Pratt was, there weren't that many great industrial design programs, and so might as well go to Pratt. These aren't very hard questions.
The buzz is now that Apple's running out of steam. You're obviously an Apple fan. Since Steve Jobs died, that it's kind of withering. Could it have been one person? I mean, could he have really? I know he was a driving force, but could he have been the designer?
Well, first of all, I think that Steve Jobs learned about design from my boss at Frog, Hartmut Esslinger, because Apple hired Frog in 82 to help design products, and so he taught Hartmut about. Hartmut taught Steve about design. But I think that the company is, the world has changed a lot since he died. And one of the things that's really amazing now is that, and Apple was really in the forefront of this, is that people can design whatever they want and then figure out how to get it produced. And so like I said, it used to be the other way around. It used to be like, oh my God, I want to make this radius, I can't do it in this material. Now it's like, I want to make this radius, and they're like, okay, we'll have to figure it out. And so I think that that's one of that kind of mentality has sifted down into other things besides product design. Now it's in politics or media, it's everything. People nowadays think they can do whatever they want. And they can. That's the scary part.
I was curious about the intersection between industrial design and architectural design, particularly when you were talking about the Yotel. It seems like there's a great need, unlike those houses you showed, for inventive architectural design on a large scale for dense populations of low-income people. What can your business bring to that?
Well, I think there are a lot of industrial designers who are doing tiny houses and stuff like that. And I think that my big pet peeve with architects is that they're not industrial designers. And I think that, because I think industrial designers have a good process of iteration and collaboration that lead and works with their users and stuff that leads to better designed things than architects who, only build one thing at a time. But I think there's, at least they're designers, though.
She has a question to you, right?
Are you concerned or worried about the future of design in terms of, you talk a lot about how there aren't parameters now and we can make everything, which is so exciting, and that in itself was innovative, but now it's kind of like there's something beautiful about being forced into constraints. And when we don't have that anymore, I mean, that's when really interesting things come up, when you're like, limitations can be incredible, and if we remove all of them, what can happen?
I think that is a problem. Charles Eames said that the constraints were what helped him be more creative. So I think that the fact that we can do whatever we want doesn't mean we should do whatever we want. And so I think people have to create their own constraints and figure out how to, have their own criteria for things. I'm not pointing at anyone because she's the one with the microphone.
Aha.
You have all the power.
I'm just following the hands.
Thanks for the presentation. My question is about the creativity process. You've been with several companies and you brainstorm different ideas, and I'm just wondering, when you're running low on ideas, what do you do to get the right people in the room and keep the juices flowing and all that? And what are some techniques you've done that you found successful?
Well, there's lots of creative tricks. Go for a walk, stuff like that. Lately, I don't think that's so much of a problem, having enough good ideas. It's more like, how do you organize them? How do you develop them? It's I think that's the bigger problem, is being just as creative in the development process as you were in the coming up with the idea. There's all those guys in Silicon Valley coming up with all kinds of crazy ideas for, and they should spend more time developing them before they actually come out with them.
I have a hard question for you. What's your thinking about the recent Supreme Court decision of Apple versus Samsung, and what impact it will have on design?
Uh-oh. Yeah, that is a hard question, because I don't really know that much about it, and I personally don't believe in intellectual property. I'm like a communist, I guess, an intellectual communist.
Were you on the amicus brief, or you weren't?
The what?
The amicus brief that the IDSA did?
No.
You weren't a signatory. Okay. So you're you're a communist.
That's right.
How do you expect?
I'm from Yellow Springs. What?
That's why we're so poor.
Ask that other guy over there is from Yellow Springs too. Ask him.
Sir?
I never saw this many people from Yellow Springs in one spot.
Not in New York. You mentioned that only designers know how to design, and that there's a lot of nasty design out there that consumers are consuming. What would you think can be done to direct consumers towards good design?
Well, first of all, I didn't say only designers could design. I said only designers, in the development process, designers are the only ones whose job it is to design. So I think everybody is a designer. Everyone here got up and designed themselves this morning. They picked out which socks they were going to wear and which shirt and stuff, and that's what combed your hair the way you wanted it. All those things, that's design. So, what? And why did they do such a bad job? Not all of them. No, but I think one of the reasons why 50s modern is so popular now is because they were good designs and the things look beautiful. And I think at that time, those designers were out in the newspapers promoting, telling people why they were good designs and what a good design was and why they should want one and how they can make their home look good and stuff like that. And I think that designers nowadays are not telling the whole story. They're just saying like, buy my new chair, or I'm a star, so you should buy my handbag, and that's not. Those aren't the reasons to help. That's not how you help people understand why things look good and why having things look good is important and stuff like that.
Can you comment on Michael Graves as both a designer and an architect?
Michael Graves is a tough one because I think a lot of people here are not going to like to hear this, but I like the design of his housewares and stuff. I thought they were fun and cool and actually ergonomic a lot of times, and I don't really like his postmodern, like clunky buildings, though. But he also, after he was paralyzed, he became like an important, engine for, inclusive design and help a lot of people live better because of his work. So. Mm-hmm. Hey, they have wine. Hey.
So Tucker, that was fabulous.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely true. And Victoria said to me, and I was actually just mirroring her words in my mind, you are a creative genius, and we are truly honored to have you here. Absolutely. And you also, I was just thinking, and the word Beautility, it embraces everything that we hope that the Artisan Lectures conveys, because every person who speaks here as an artisan is all about beautility. They haven't used that word, but that's the underlying principle.
Big letters up there would be really nice.
Yes. So we are really thrilled and delighted that you have spoken here this evening. And as is our custom here, Victoria would like to make a presentation to you.
Yes. And Tucker, I'd like to add to Karen's comments and say that, yes, one of the things that we have found with our master artisans that come and lecture is their level of humility. I mean, Tucker spoke of things like that ideas just so easily come, and he very understated. But not only are you people, and yes, people can think of design, but you've designed and you've implemented and you have built, major companies around that, and you've employed people, and you've worked your craft, and then you train others to do that work. And so ideas come to people, but again, you implement, and you are a creative genius. And it was so wonderful to listen to you. And you know what? You also make people laugh, so that's the total package. That's right. Really important. Really important. So. On behalf of the General Society of Mechanics and Tradesmen of the City of New York, founded 1785 by 22 artisans, we express our gratitude to Tucker Viemeister, Viemeister Industries industrial designer, for his participation in the General Society Artisan Lecture Series. Thank you so much, Tucker.
I feel like
So, and many of you haven't come to our presentations, so you don't know this, but Tucker, you are also now a lifetime member of, of the General Society Library, because we never let you go once you're in the lecture series.
Wow,
so that's
thanks.
for you. Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to come back to this library.
Okay, please.
Thanks.
Our archives go back to 1785, and we also have New York Times bestsellers, so it's a full range. Okay, and that's your poster. So thank you.
Thanks. You got anything else?
I'm afraid that's it for the oh, and a General Society bag to take everything away in.
And our motto is by hammer in hand, all arts do stand, adopted at our first meeting in 1785. So on that note, we thank you, Tucker. We thank you, Ted Muelling. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ted, for that terrific introduction.
And we also thank each and every one of you for joining us tonight. It means so much, and supporting the General Society Artisan Lecture Series and our speaker this evening.